Saturday morning, and it's time to talk technology here on the Experts Program as we kick things off with Luis Alvarez, CEO of the Alvarez Technology Group. Luis, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Mark. How are you feeling?
I'm doing better. Thank you very much. I went to the doctor the other day, and they said, hey, you've got bronchitis, so take this stuff, and you'll be better in a few days, and it's working. So fingers are crossed that we'll be over this very soon.
Well, I'm feeling your pain, my friend. Sometimes I get some of that stuff up in my sinuses myself, and it's really a pain to get rid of.
Not a lot of fun. Yeah. Well, ChatGPT and AI are in the news yet again. They never leave the news, actually. And now we're seeing there's an interesting story. And you and I talked about this a few weeks ago about ChatGPT being manipulative and actually putting out incorrect information and the ability to lie. And here we have an instance where a man is suing OpenAI, the company that developed this ChatGPT, because it published a story that claimed that he embezzled money, that he was an officer of a nonprofit organization, and in reality, the man was an innocent party who had nothing to do with that organization at all. What the heck is going on here? Why is this happening?
Yeah, so this is a really interesting story, and yet another ChatGPT fail. I think we're going to have to start putting these up on a wall because they're becoming very common. And in this case, there was a journalist that was doing an investigative report on an organization called the Second Amendment Foundation, and he was trying to track down some embezzled funds. And during his research, he used ChatGPT, which identified a gentleman named Mark Walters as the treasurer of this organization, which in fact he wasn't. But then the article went on to basically claim that he had embezzled all this money and he was a bad person. And it just like drug his life into all sorts of hell because he was mistakenly picked by ChatGPT as the chief financial officer of this organization. So he's not going after the journalist, however, because he figures the journalist made an innocent mistake. He's actually going after OpenAI, the manufacturers of ChatGPTs, because he feels that they've created this thing that has no control and basically spout off anything it wants to. And, we talked a few weeks ago about that case where the lawyer used ChatGPT to look for cases to support his lawsuit against Avianca, an airline, and it came up with a bunch of make-believe cases that resulted in the lawsuit getting tossed. But ChatGPT is a useful tool in some cases, but it really needs to be vetted if you're using it for research.
Well, and how are you going to do that? So I think the big problem is that it's almost like it's uncontrollable, ChatGPT, because of the way it's programmed. It has a certain amount of independence, right? But somewhere along the line, it's getting its operating instructions from someone, and they seem to be without a moral center. And I don't know if it is possible to imbue something that is non-sentient like that with any sort of moral code. How would you do that?
It's difficult, if not impossible, because it's like, how do you define a lie? We spent, I think, the last few years having that conversation amongst ourselves as human beings and coming up with different results. So trying to create a code, basically creating a programming language that says this is what a lie is, or this is what the truth is, and this is what is an untruth, is difficult, if not impossible. And I use ChatGPT to do some research for me, but I always look for the citations. It's really good about, even though it gives you a narrative of its results, it then provides citations for where the information came from. And I go into those citations and check it just to verify that it's legit stuff. In my case, I would never use it for anything as serious as doing research into embezzlement or using it to look for cases out on the internet regarding lawsuits. But if you do use it for any sort of research, a couple of things that you should be wary about is, one, don't use any non-public information in your query. So if you're doing research about maybe your organization and you put something in there that's confidential, chances are that's going to be out in the public someplace. That'll be able to be looked for itself. So never do that sort of stuff, and always be wary or leery of the results that you get and verify them.
That sounds like good advice. And it's just, double checking that we have to do, because this is one of the things in this brave new world of the internet and citizen journalism that people aren't really aware of, is that in traditional journalism, if it's done correctly, there is a lot of vetting that goes on before you would put something on the air, in print, publish it. It want to make sure that everything is correct and that it is fully comprehensible. And oftentimes what we see in the world of citizen journalism is there's a lot of enthusiasm to do something, but there's not as much enthusiasm or knowledge of what the rules of the road need to be. And I'm not talking talking about people who color their reporting with their viewpoint. That's a whole other thing, but I'm talking about just the gathering of factual data and reporting upon it in a way to inform people what happened. David McCullough, the author, always has a great way of describing things. He says, the king died and then the queen died, and you have a couple of facts. So what do you do with that? Now, if I say the king died and the queen died of grief, now you have a story and you have context. And what is oftentimes missing in whether it's ChatGPT or just citizen journalism is the understanding on the part of the person that is putting the information out as to what are the rules of the road and how do I do this in such a way that provides context to the reader and gives them a complete summary of what's going on. And what I'm seeing now with AI-generated stories, and we see them all over the net, you'll be reading the story and you feel like you're halfway into the story and then it's over. And you're left with like, God, this is like eating an air sandwich. Where's the rest of the information, right? And you're wondering, and at first I'm thinking to myself, gosh, the person that wrote this is really poorly trained. And then I come to understand that, well, there wasn't a human being behind that story. That was an AI-generated story. And then it makes all the sense in the world to me as to why it's so incomplete, because they haven't figured out what they've been able to do is they can assemble the means of having an AI figure out how to put facts in order or to gather these facts and then disseminate them, but they haven't figured out how to imbue a moral code into that, nor have they figured out how do you add context. How do you make it a complete story? And that, to me, that's where you still need a human being to do that.
I agree. And I think that like I said, it's great for research, but it's not great for putting together a finished product.
Right.
I would never write an article and publish it using ChatGPT without going over it myself and making sure that not only were the facts correct, but to your point, making sure that it makes sense to the reader, that it offers a compelling reason to read, whether it's a blog post or a social media post or even an article. You just don't want it to be a bunch of facts that don't have any life to them.
Luis Alvarez, CEO of the Alvarez Technology Group, has joined us today. Online, you'll find them at alvareztg.com. At AlvarezTG is their Twitter handle. And Luis, the toll-free number for the I-Team.
Give us a call at 866-78-I-Team. That's 866-784-8326.